Let me ask you something important. Have you ever felt like there's too much noise in your life? The constant chatter, the endless distractions, the pressure to speak, to respond, to be heard. We live in a world where everyone seems to have an opinion, where silence is often seen as a void to be filled. But what if I told you that there's a power in silence, a kind of strength that many overlook? But those who truly understand it are able to move through life with a kind of quiet resilience that speaks louder than words. This isn't just some abstract idea. It's a real, tangible trait that can transform the way you engage with the world. It's about recognizing that what you don't say can be just as impactful, if not more, than what you do say. And that's what we're going to dive into today. The 10 traits of those who speak less, but live more. Those who have mastered the art of listening, of choosing their words carefully, and of letting silence become their strength. Think about the people you admire most. They're the ones who listen more than they speak. They're the ones who know when to offer a word of wisdom and when to remain silent. They're the ones who have figured out that in this noisy world, there's something incredibly powerful about saying less. But how do they do it? What makes them different? Let's explore these traits together, and I'll show you how adopting them can not only change how you communicate, but transform the very way you experience life. The first trait is self-awareness. People who speak less are often deeply self-aware. They've learned to recognize their own thoughts and emotions before they let them spill out. They don't react impulsively. They pause, they reflect, and they choose their words with intention. Imagine the difference in your life if you could respond to situations with calm and thoughtfulness, instead of jumping in with an immediate reaction. How would your relationships change if you could pause, understand your feelings, and then speak from a place of clarity? This doesn't come easily. It takes practice, patience, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. But the more you learn to listen to your own inner dialogue, the more you'll understand when to speak and when to remain silent. It's about developing a deeper connection with yourself so that you can show up in the world as a person who speaks with purpose, not out of habit or impulse. Now let's talk about the second trait, empathy. Those who speak less are often incredibly empathetic. They understand that sometimes the best way to connect with others is not by offering advice or solutions, but by simply listening. In fact, many people don't need you to fix their problems. They just need someone to hear them. Think about the last time you shared something personal with someone. Did they listen, or did they immediately try to offer a solution? If they listened, how did that make you feel? Empathy is the foundation of true connection. It's the ability to sit in silence with someone and make them feel seen, heard, and understood. And the more you cultivate empathy in your own life, the more you'll notice how much more you can offer by speaking less. It's not about withdrawing. It's about stepping back enough to let others be heard, while still remaining fully present. Next, let's dive into the third trait, the power of observation. People who speak less are often keen observers. They pay attention to the world around them, the body language, the tone of voice, the subtle cues that others may miss. This allows them to understand people on a deeper level. When you take the time to observe, rather than immediately insert your own thoughts into a conversation, you start to notice things you might have missed before. You begin to understand the emotions behind the words, the stories behind the faces. This power of observation can transform the way you interact with others. Instead of jumping into every conversation with your own thoughts, you learn to listen actively, taking in the details that others may overlook. It's a practice of patience, of tuning into the present moment, and of being truly engaged in what's happening around you. The fourth trait is discipline. Speaking less requires a great deal of self-control. It's about resisting the urge to fill every silence, to always have the last word, or to try and impress others with your knowledge. Instead, those who speak less know that true wisdom lies in choosing when and how to speak, not in constantly being heard. This is a discipline that requires constant awareness and practice. It's easy to speak impulsively, to let your thoughts spill out without thinking. But true discipline is about reining in that impulse, about being aware of when silence is more valuable than words. Imagine the power you would have if you could master this discipline. If you could walk into any situation knowing when to speak, when to listen, and when to let silence do the heavy lifting. You would become someone others respect, someone who doesn't need to shout to be heard, but who commands attention with their presence and their ability to listen. The fifth trait is humility. People who speak less often carry themselves with humility. They know that they don't have all the answers, and they don't need to prove themselves through constant talking. Humility isn't about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less. It's about recognizing that your voice is just one among many, and that sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from knowing when to be quiet and learn from others. Humility allows you to stay open to new ideas, to listen without judgment, and to learn from every conversation. It's the trait that reminds you that you don't have to be the center of attention to be valuable. Your worth isn't in how much you speak, but in how much you're willing to listen and learn from the world around you. And as we move into the sixth trait, we come to the importance of presence. People who speak less are often fully present in every moment. They don't rush to fill every silence with words, because they understand that sometimes the greatest gift you can offer is your undivided attention. In a world full of distractions, being truly present with someone is a rare and precious gift. It's a way of saying, I see you, I hear you, and I'm here for you. When you're present, you're not thinking about what you're going to say next or trying to impress anyone. You're simply listening, absorbing, and connecting. And this deep presence is what makes your words, when you do choose to speak, all the more meaningful. Let's move on to the seventh trait, the ability to embrace silence. People who speak less understand that silence is not something to fear. In fact, silence is often the space where the deepest thoughts and insights emerge. It's where clarity comes from, where reflection happens, and where true wisdom is found. Silence isn't emptiness. It's a fertile ground for growth. When you learn to embrace silence, you stop feeling the need to constantly fill the air with words. You become comfortable with the quiet, knowing that in those moments, something profound is happening within you. And this ability to sit in silence without feeling awkward or uncomfortable gives you a sense of inner peace that others will notice and respect. The eighth trait is patience. Speaking less requires patience, not just with others, but with yourself. It's about waiting for the right moment, not rushing to be heard, but allowing the conversation to unfold naturally. It's about resisting the urge to jump in and interrupt, even when you feel like you have something valuable to contribute. Instead, you wait, you listen, and you give others the space to share their thoughts. Patience is a skill that strengthens with practice. The more you cultivate it, the more you'll realize that not everything needs to be said in the moment. Sometimes, the best response is no response at all, just the patience to let the moment breathe, to allow the conversation to develop on its own. The ninth trait is resilience. People who speak less often have a quiet resilience. They're able to weather storms without panicking, to face adversity without reacting impulsively. They've learned that silence can be a source of strength, especially in difficult situations. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration, they pause, they breathe, and they respond with clarity and purpose. This resilience comes from their ability to stay calm and collected in the face of chaos, knowing that their silence speaks louder than any words ever could. Finally, we come to the 10th trait, wisdom. People who speak less are often seen as wise, not because they know everything, but because they know when to speak and when to listen. They understand that wisdom isn't in saying everything that comes to mind, but in choosing to speak only when it matters. This kind of wisdom comes from experience, from reflection, and from a deep understanding of the world around them. It's not about filling the space with words, but about understanding the value of each word you say. It's about speaking with purpose, with intention, and with the knowledge that sometimes less is more. And this wisdom is what makes people who speak less so compelling. They may not say much, but when they do, you listen, because you know that their words are carefully chosen, thoughtful, and meaningful. As we wrap up, I want you to take a moment to reflect on these 10 traits. Think about how they apply to your own life. How often do you find yourself speaking just to fill the silence? How often do you listen, truly listen, without judgment, without offering solutions? Imagine the impact it could have on your relationships, on your work, and on your inner peace if you chose to embrace silence and speak less. This journey isn't about becoming a mute or retreating from the world. It's about finding your voice in the quiet and learning to speak with purpose when the time is right. It's about creating a life that's more thoughtful, more intentional, and more connected. So take a deep breath and think about the next conversation you have. Will you choose to speak more, or will you choose to listen more? The choice is yours. Think about the moments in your life when you've been in a conversation and someone truly listened to you. How did that feel? Did you feel understood? Did you feel valued? In those moments, you weren't looking for a solution. You weren't waiting for advice. You simply wanted someone to hear you, to acknowledge your feelings, your thoughts, your presence. And in that space of listening, there was a sense of connection, a sense of peace that came from being truly heard. Now imagine if you could be that person for others. Imagine being the person who, instead of rushing to give advice or trying to fill the air with your own words, takes a moment to listen deeply. Imagine the kind of relationships you could build, the trust you could foster, and the wisdom you could gain. By simply choosing to speak less, you are opening the door to a richer, more meaningful connection with those around you. You're not just improving your conversations, you're enriching your entire life. It's not about being quiet just for the sake of it. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not, or holding back your thoughts because you're afraid to speak up. No, it's about being intentional with your words and recognizing that the true power of communication doesn't lie in the quantity of what we say, but in the quality. It's about knowing when your words can make a difference and when your silence can create space for someone else to speak, for someone else to feel seen, heard, and understood. Now let's dive into another aspect of speaking less. the emotional clarity that comes with it. When we talk less, we give ourselves the gift of emotional clarity. It's easy to get caught up in the rush of emotions, to speak out of anger, frustration, or excitement without thinking it through. But when we take a moment to pause, to allow ourselves to process our feelings before responding, we begin to respond from a place of calm. Emotional clarity gives us the power to handle difficult conversations with grace, to manage conflict without escalating it, and to express ourselves in ways that are truly constructive. How many times have you found yourself regretting something you said in the heat of the moment? We've all been there. It's a feeling of wanting to take back those words, to undo the damage they've caused. But when we practice speaking less, we allow ourselves to pause, to breathe, and to make sure that what we say is not just a reaction, but a response born out of understanding. That is the power of emotional clarity. It's not about avoiding tough conversations. It's about navigating them with mindfulness and intention. And as you begin to embrace the habit of speaking less, something else starts to shift within you. Your ability to handle stress. The more you practice silence, the more you build resilience against the chaos around you. Stressful situations no longer feel like triggers for impulsive reactions. Instead, you become the calm in the storm, the person who doesn't get swept up in the drama or noise. You recognize that stress is often a result of feeling out of control, of wanting to have the last word or to fix everything in an instant. But when you speak less, you reclaim control over your emotions. You let the situation unfold without forcing an immediate response, and you start to realize that your silence isn't weakness, it's your strength. Think about it. When you're in a stressful situation and everyone else is speaking over each other, what stands out to you? It's the person who remains calm, the one who isn't shouting to be heard. There's something magnetic about that presence, something that draws respect and admiration. People may not remember every word you say, but they will remember how you made them feel. And when you speak with intention and purpose, when you don't feel the need to constantly fill the silence, you give others the gift of your calmness, your wisdom, and your presence. It's important to realize that silence doesn't mean you're disengaged or indifferent. Quite the opposite. It's a form of engagement that goes deeper than words. Silence invites people to open up, to share more than they might have otherwise. When you don't rush to speak, you create space for others to express themselves more fully. You allow them to feel heard in a way that's rare in today's fast-paced world. This is the power of deep listening, the ability to create an environment where people feel safe to open up and share their thoughts and feelings without fear of being judged or interrupted. As you begin to incorporate these habits into your life, you'll notice that the more you listen, the more you learn. You'll start to understand people in ways you never have before. You'll begin to see the patterns in their speech, the emotions behind their words, the things they're not saying out loud. You'll become more attuned to their needs, their desires, and their struggles. And the best part? You'll gain a deeper understanding of yourself along the way. The act of listening, of speaking less, is not just about connecting with others. It's also about connecting with your own inner world. One of the greatest gifts that comes from speaking less is the ability to observe the world with fresh eyes. Instead of constantly talking, you allow yourself to step back and watch the world unfold. You start to notice the little things, the way someone's eyes light up when they talk about something they love, the subtle shift in their posture when they're nervous or anxious. You notice the changes in people's energy, the things they're not saying but that speak volumes. This heightened awareness of others gives you the tools to build stronger, more authentic relationships. It allows you to connect with people on a deeper level, not through the words they say, but through the way they say them and through the way they are. This is how you build real empathy, not by trying to fix everything, but by simply being present and letting people be themselves. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It's about stepping into their shoes, feeling what they feel, and seeing the world through their eyes. And when you listen deeply, when you choose silence over unnecessary words, you open the door to this deep level of understanding. You stop judging, stop rushing to fix things, and instead you simply show up and let people be heard. It's not always easy to stay quiet, especially when you feel the urge to jump in with your own thoughts or opinions. But that's the challenge, learning to be okay with silence, learning to be present with others without feeling the need to speak. And over time, you'll begin to notice a shift in how people respond to you. They'll feel more comfortable around you because you're not trying to fill the space with your own voice. You're creating an environment where they can express themselves freely without feeling interrupted or judged. This shift doesn't happen overnight, and it takes patience. But it's one of the most powerful things you can do to improve your relationships, to deepen your understanding of others, and to live a more peaceful, reflective life. You don't need to speak constantly to make an impact. Sometimes the greatest impact comes from what you don't say. It comes from listening, from being present, and from showing up for others in a way that speaks louder than words ever could. The more you practice this, the more natural it will become. The more you embrace the power of silence, the more you'll see how much space it creates for growth, understanding, and connection. It's a journey, one that will challenge you and push you outside of your comfort zone. But it's also a journey that will lead you to a deeper, more fulfilling life. So as you move forward, remember this: speaking less doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you less important. In fact, it's one of the most powerful tools you have to create lasting change in your life and in the lives of those around you. And as you continue to embrace silence, to listen more than you speak, you'll find that you become a beacon of strength, wisdom, and calm in a world that desperately needs it. People will start to seek you out, not because you always have the answers, but because they know that when they speak to you, they'll be truly heard. They'll know that you're not just filling the silence with noise, but that you're offering them something far more valuable: your undivided attention. And as you walk this path, you'll begin to see that silence isn't empty. It's full of possibility. It's full of wisdom, understanding, and connection. So take a moment to reflect on what you've heard today. How can you incorporate the power of silence into your life? How can you become someone who listens more than they speak? Someone who understands the deep value of quiet reflection? The answers may not come all at once, but as you begin this journey, you'll start to see the profound impact that silence can have on your life and on the lives of those around you. Think about the last time you were truly present in a moment. I mean really present. No distractions, no rushing, just fully immersed in what was happening around you. How did that feel? If you're like most people, those moments are rare. We live in a world that's constantly pulling us in a million directions, demanding our attention at all times. But when we practice the art of speaking less, we're giving ourselves the opportunity to be more present, more mindful, and more connected to the world around us. Think of the people in your life who make you feel heard. They are the ones who don't interrupt, who don't finish your sentences, and who don't immediately try to fix your problems. They simply listen. They sit with you in your discomfort, your joy, your pain, and your triumphs. They don't need to speak to show that they care. They just are. They create space for you to express yourself, and in doing so, they offer a rare gift, the gift of presence. Now consider how often you give that same gift to others. When was the last time you really listened, not just to the words being spoken, but to the emotions, the fears, the hopes behind those words? What happens when we take a step back and allow others the space to fully express themselves without rushing to respond or offer advice? You may be surprised by what you discover, not just about them, but about yourself. The power of speaking less is not about silencing your voice, but about choosing the right moments to speak. It's about recognizing that words hold power, and with that power comes responsibility. When we speak less, we give our words more weight. We stop throwing out words carelessly, and instead we choose them carefully, ensuring they have meaning, purpose, and intention. And in a world that is filled with noise, with everyone shouting to be heard, your silence becomes a form of rebellion. It becomes a statement that says, I don't need to be part of the noise to be heard. I don't need to prove myself by speaking constantly. My value comes from my ability to listen, to understand, and to choose my words wisely. In this way, silence is not a weakness, it is a strength. It is a way to create clarity, to make room for deeper connections, and to navigate life with purpose. But silence isn't always easy. It requires discipline, it requires patience. It requires us to resist the urge to fill the space with our own thoughts, our own opinions. It requires us to be okay with not having the answers, to be okay with not being the center of attention. And that can be uncomfortable, especially in a culture that prizes speaking out, being heard, and making our voices known. But when we choose silence, we are choosing to prioritize connection over noise. We are choosing to value others' voices over our own, and in doing so, we create the kind of relationships that are rooted in understanding, trust, and empathy. What if instead of rushing to speak in every conversation, you took a moment to pause, to reflect, to listen? What if you allowed yourself to be fully present in the silence, trusting that the words you choose when you do speak will be more powerful, more impactful, and more meaningful because of it? Imagine how different your relationships, your work, and your overall experience of life could be. The truth is, speaking less doesn't just benefit those around you. It benefits you too. When we speak less, we give ourselves the opportunity to listen to our own thoughts, to reflect on our own emotions, and to better understand who we are. It's in the quiet moments that we connect with our own inner wisdom. It's in the silence that we begin to hear the answers we've been searching for, the clarity we've been missing. And in those moments of introspection, we grow. We evolve. We become more in tune with ourselves, and as a result, we become more in tune with others. Now let's talk about how this practice can change the way you approach conflict. We've all been there, right? A disagreement with someone, a tense conversation, a moment where emotions are running high. In those moments, it's so easy to jump in, to defend yourself, to fight for your point of view. But when you speak less, you give yourself the space to respond instead of react. You give yourself the chance to really hear the other person, to understand where they're coming from, and to choose your words carefully, with empathy and respect. And when you respond from a place of understanding, rather than reacting from a place of emotion, you not only resolve conflict more effectively, you also strengthen the bond between you and the other person. Think about it. How many times have you regretted saying something in the heat of the moment? How many times have you wished you'd stayed quiet, given yourself time to process, and responded with more thoughtfulness? That's the beauty of speaking less. It gives you the opportunity to pause, to reflect, and to respond with greater wisdom. And when you do speak, your words carry more weight because they are measured, intentional, and rooted in understanding. And it's not just about conflict. This practice of speaking less can transform every area of your life. It can change the way you approach your relationships, your work, and your daily interactions. You begin to listen more deeply, to speak with more intention, and to connect with others on a level that goes beyond surface-level conversation. You become more attuned to the unspoken words, the emotions behind the words, the things that often go unnoticed. You start to see people for who they truly are, not just for what they say. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, the person who speaks less becomes a rare presence. They become someone others seek out because they know that when they speak to that person, they'll be truly listened to. They'll be met with understanding, with empathy, and with a presence that says, "I see you, I hear you, you matter." And that's a gift that's becoming more and more rare these days. So the next time you find yourself in a conversation, take a moment to pause. Take a moment to listen. Take a moment to reflect before you speak. Trust that your silence will create the space for deeper connections, for more meaningful conversations, and for greater understanding. And in that silence, you'll find a strength that will guide you through life's challenges, a strength that will help you build better relationships, and a strength that will allow you to live with greater intention and purpose. You know, there's something deeply transformative about embracing the power of silence, especially in moments when we are tempted to speak, to fill the space with words. But think about it for a second. In a world where everyone is trying to get their voice heard, who are the ones who truly stand out? It's the ones who aren't constantly talking, who aren't always trying to impress or be seen. Instead, they speak when it matters. They speak when their words can add value, not just noise. This isn't about being shy or retreating from the world. It's about being selective, about being intentional with how we show up in the world. It's about making sure that when you do speak, you're not just heard, but understood. And when you listen, you're not just passing the time, you're actively engaging with the world around you. There's so much wisdom in that stillness, in that pause. In fact, the quiet moments in life often carry more wisdom than any conversation could. Think back to the people who've truly influenced you in life. I'm not talking about the ones who spoke the loudest or the most often, but the ones whose words carried weight. The ones who, when they spoke, made you stop and listen because you knew their words had meaning. Maybe it was a mentor, a teacher, or even a friend. Their power wasn't in their constant chatter. It was in their ability to listen deeply and speak with purpose when it was necessary. This is exactly what the practice of speaking less allows us to do. It helps us become more mindful of our words, more aware of when to speak and when to stay silent. It teaches us the value of listening, not just hearing, but truly listening. And in doing so, we learn to connect with others on a much deeper level. Now think about how many times you've been in a conversation where someone was just waiting for their turn to speak. Not really listening, but instead thinking about what they were going to say next. How does that make you feel? It's frustrating, isn't it? It's as though your words don't matter, as if the person isn't really interested in understanding you. But when someone listens, really listens, you feel seen, you feel valued, you feel heard in a way that words alone can't accomplish. This is the power of silent strength. When you hold space for someone, when you allow them to share without rushing to respond or fix, you create an environment where they can truly express themselves, and in return, you'll find that they start doing the same for you. They begin to listen more attentively, to hear the unspoken things you're communicating, and before you know it, you've created a relationship built on mutual respect, understanding, and deep connection. Isn't that what we all want at the end of the day? But here's the thing, this isn't just about how you connect with others. The impact of speaking less goes even deeper. It affects the way you show up for yourself. Think about your inner dialogue for a moment. How often do you criticize yourself? How often do you talk down to yourself, telling yourself you're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough? We often speak to ourselves in ways that we'd never speak to someone else, and yet we carry these words with us, shaping our thoughts and actions. But when you start practicing silence, even in your own mind, something powerful begins to happen. You stop listening to that constant stream of negativity. You begin to pause before responding to yourself, to reflect on your own thoughts before allowing them to take root. And in that moment of pause, you begin to recognize the power of self-compassion, self-understanding, and self-empowerment. You start to realize that you don't need to rush to judge yourself, that you can simply be with your thoughts, observe them, and choose how to move forward with more intention and clarity. This practice of speaking less, of listening more, also helps you become more aware of your own emotional state. We've all been there, caught up in a whirlwind of emotions, reacting impulsively, only to regret what we said or did later. But when you choose silence, you give yourself the space to process your feelings, to step back, and to respond with more balance and perspective. You become less reactive and more reflective. And this, my friend, is the true essence of emotional intelligence. You see, when we start to speak less, we open up a space within ourselves and within our relationships where the most meaningful, transformative moments can unfold. Whether it's a simple conversation, a difficult decision, or a moment of introspection, speaking less doesn't mean saying nothing. It means choosing our words carefully, intentionally, and with great thought. It's about responding with mindfulness and choosing silence when words would only dilute the message we want to convey. And isn't that what we all crave? To be understood, to be seen, to be valued for who we are and what we have to say. But in order to achieve that, we must first practice the art of listening, not just to others, but to ourselves. We must create space for the truth to emerge, for our deeper thoughts and feelings to rise to the surface. In doing so, we become more attuned to the world around us, more aware of what truly matters, and more connected to the essence of who we are. As we continue on this journey of speaking less, we begin to realize that silence isn't something to fear. It isn't a void, but a space full of potential. It is where we find clarity, where we connect with our true selves, and where we begin to understand the deeper truths of the world around us. Silence allows us to listen more deeply, to respond more thoughtfully, and to show up more fully in our lives. So I invite you to take a moment right now to reflect on your own life. How can you incorporate more silence into your day? How can you speak less and listen more, both to others and to yourself? What would change if you allowed yourself the space to pause, to breathe, and to be present in the moment? Think about the possibilities. When you embrace silence, you not only transform your relationships with others, but you also create a deeper connection with yourself. You begin to live with more intention, more purpose, and more clarity. The journey to mastering the art of speaking less is a lifelong one, and it requires patience, practice, and a willingness to embrace discomfort. But in the end, it's worth it. It's worth it because the quieter you become, the more you hear. And when you listen, really listen, you'll begin to hear the truth that's been waiting for you all along. Think about this for a moment. We live in a world that constantly demands our attention, where the noise is so loud and unrelenting that it often drowns out the most important things. In the chaos of the everyday grind, we sometimes forget that silence can be our greatest ally. But silence isn't about being quiet just for the sake of it. It's not about avoiding confrontation or pretending that we don't have a voice. Silence is about choosing when to speak, when to listen, and when to just be present. It's about giving yourself the opportunity to process, to reflect, and to understand the deeper layers of any situation or conversation. The more we allow ourselves to be still, the more we open up the space for meaningful connections. Have you ever noticed that when you truly listen to someone, when you give them your full attention, there's this instant bond that forms? It's like you're sharing something far more valuable than just words. You're sharing a moment of vulnerability and trust. And in that moment, you become more than just two people talking. You become two people deeply connected on a level that transcends mere conversation. But this connection doesn't just happen automatically. It's something we have to intentionally cultivate. It's something that requires us to let go of the urge to fill every moment with our own thoughts, our own opinions, and our own judgments. It's about resisting the temptation to jump in and speak before the other person has finished, to fix the situation or offer advice right away. Sometimes people don't need our solutions. They don't need us to have the answers. What they need is for us to hear them, to give them the space to express themselves, and to truly understand what they're saying, without judgment, without interruption. When we choose silence, we choose to honor the other person's experience. We acknowledge that their feelings, their thoughts, and their words are just as valid as our own. And in doing so, we open the door for them to be heard in a way that's meaningful, that's transformative. And isn't that the kind of connection we all crave? To be heard, to be understood, and to feel like someone truly sees us for who we are. But let's not forget that this practice of silence extends far beyond our relationships with others. It extends to how we engage with the world around us, and even how we engage with ourselves. Think about the constant chatter that goes on inside your mind. The shoulds and musts, the worries about the future, the regrets about the past. It can feel like an endless loop of noise, one that makes it hard to think clearly or to be at peace with who we are. But what if we could quiet that noise? What if, instead of constantly feeding into the chaos, we took a step back and allowed ourselves the time and space to process our thoughts, to reflect on our experiences, and to simply be with ourselves. This is where the true power of silence lies. It's not just in how we interact with others, it's also in how we interact with ourselves. When we take the time to listen to our own thoughts, to pause before reacting, we open up the possibility for growth and healing. We give ourselves the gift of clarity, of insight, and of understanding. And in that space, we can begin to heal old wounds, let go of limiting beliefs, and move forward with greater confidence and purpose. Silence allows us to reconnect with our own sense of purpose. It invites us to listen to the deeper calls of our hearts and minds, the ones that often get drowned out by the noise of our daily lives. How often do you feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of tasks and responsibilities on your plate? How often do you feel like you're just going through the motions, caught up in a cycle of doing without truly being present? This is where the power of silence comes in. It offers us a break from the constant doing, a chance to simply be. And when we give ourselves permission to be still, we begin to rediscover the things that matter most. We reconnect with our values, our goals, and the things that bring us joy. We realize that we don't need to chase after every fleeting desire or every passing distraction. We realize that the answers we seek are often already within us, waiting for the right moment of silence to emerge. In a world that often rewards speed, instant gratification, and constant activity, silence is a radical act. It's a practice of slowing down, of stepping off the hamster wheel, and choosing to live with intention. And when we begin to embrace this practice, we notice a shift, not just in how we interact with the world, but in how we experience life itself. We become more present, more mindful, and more grounded in who we truly are. So take a moment now to reflect on how you can bring more silence into your life. It doesn't have to be an all-or-nothing approach. It could be as simple as taking a few minutes each day to sit in stillness, to breathe, and to just be present with your thoughts. It could be about choosing to listen more and speak less in your conversations with others. It could be about setting aside time to reflect, to process, and to connect with your inner self. Whatever it looks like for you, the key is to make it a practice that you commit to, not just when it's convenient, but as a way of life. Because when you begin to embrace the power of silence, you'll begin to see the world in a whole new way. You'll notice the beauty in the small moments, the depth in your relationships, and the clarity in your own mind. You'll realize that the quieter you become, the more you hear, and the more you're able to connect with what truly matters. It's a journey that will transform the way you live, the way you love, and the way you experience the world. And it all starts with choosing silence. As you move forward with this new perspective, embracing the power of silence, remember that this journey is yours, and it's one worth taking. Silence isn't just a break from the world. It's a powerful tool for self-discovery, reflection, and growth. When you make space for silence, you make space for a deeper connection with yourself and those around you. And every small step you take in this practice brings you closer to living with intention, purpose, and clarity. I want to encourage you to take what you've learned today and apply it to your life. Start small, find moments of stillness, and notice how your perspective begins to shift. It may feel challenging at first, especially in a world that constantly asks for our attention. But trust me, as you continue to nurture this practice, you will feel the rewards. You will find peace in the silence and strength in your ability to listen and reflect. If today's video has resonated with you, I'd love for you to join this journey with me. Subscribe to the channel and become part of a community dedicated to growth, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. There's so much more ahead, more insights, more moments of reflection, and more ways for us to explore how we can live a life filled with purpose, connection, and strength. By subscribing, you're committing not just to learning, but to transforming. You're opening yourself to new ideas, new practices, and a new way of engaging with the world. So if you found value in this, don't hesitate. Join me, and let's continue this journey of self-discovery together. Keep embracing the silence, keep choosing intention, and keep growing into the person you're meant to be. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I believe in you, and I'm so excited to see where this path takes you. You're not alone on this journey. We're all in this together. I'll be here, ready to share more insights and wisdom whenever you're ready to listen. And if you're ready for more, click on the next video to keep exploring, learning, and growing. Let's continue this journey of transformation together.